This video will focus on Chapter 19, the States and Societies in Sub-Saharan Africa. The effect, with the early African migrations to Bantu people, you had Bantu-speaking peoples settle south of the Equator. The primary result of the Bantu migration was the spread of agriculture and herding to almost all the parts of Africa. You also had the invention of iron metallurgy, leading to the extension of agriculture. They eventually push away or assimilate the forest people, and the population expands. You get a second wave of growth of bananas, which were brought to Africa from Southeast Asia around 500 CE. They were a very nutritious supplement, and they opened up forested regions to agriculture, which proved a very big deal. You had as we can see this population growth from 400 BCE to 1000 CE, starting off of less than 5 million all the way up to more than 20 million. Societies in this region were stateless and segmented. There were no elaborate hierarchies or bureaucracies, with the average population of a village being 100. The villages were ruled by elders or male heads of families. Population pressures after 1000 increase. Competition, disputes, and strained resources. Small chiefdoms began to appear, overruling kin-based groups. Increased conflict would encourage communities to organize military forces for both offensive and defensive purposes in this more troubled world. Eventually, these become small kingdoms. So this is a map of the kingdoms/empires of sub-Saharan Africa in 800 to 1500, with the Mali Empire, the Kingdom of Ghana, the Songhai Empire here in West Africa. Islam spreads to West Africa along Trans-Saharan caravans, as well as along the east coast of Africa for maritime trade. So a profound influence of the 8th century on political, social, and economic development. The introduction of Arabian camels around 500 BCE and a saddle around 200 BCE revolutionized trade by 300 CE. They are essentially ships of the desert, allowing you to cross the Sahara Desert within 70 to 90 days. Arabs established trading communities in the caravan routes, and these caravan routes across the Sahara offered access to the Niger River Valley, which are flourishing markets for copper, ironware, cotton, textiles, salt, and grains. The Kingdom of Ghana develops around the 4th to 5th century CE. It is not, however, related to modern-day Ghana. It provided protection against camel-driving raiders, or the Western Saharan nomads, kind of like the Central Asian nomads. They engaged in the African gold trade imported from the south to Ghana, as well as the salt trade. The control and the controlling and taxing of the trade in gold both enriched and strengthened their realm. They also sold ivory and slaves. The kings of Ghana converted to Islam around the 10th century CE. The conversion led to improved relations with Muslim merchants. However, they made no attempt to impose Islam forcibly or exclusively on their society. Locals often synthesized Islam with local tradition in the form of syncretism. The faith attracted many converts among those engaged in trade of Muslim merchants, again to improve the prospects for trade. Under the reign of Sandiata, who reigned from 1230 to 1255, the Empire of Mali, another power, extends control over the Kingdom of Ghana. He took greater advantage of his Trans-Saharan trade networks and controlled and taxed almost all trade passing through West Africa. The rulers of Mali honored Islam but did not force conversions. They just encouraged its spread. The grandnephew of Sanadita, Mansa Musa, who reigned from 1312 to 1337, was a fervent Muslim and performed the Hajj in 1324 to 1325. As a ruler, he constructed numerous mosques and supported Muslim scholars and schools. However, then factions crippled the central government and the provinces seceded from the empire. However, the empire eventually succumbed to factions, province secession, and military pressure. The Kingdom of Songhai eventually replaced it. And this is a map. This is a depiction of Mansa Musa and a picture of his realm. During his reign, he was known for being fabulously rich. As he traveled along his caravan, In fact, as he traveled as he made the Hajj, he brought so much gold with him that it actually caused runaway inflation. East Coast African maritime trade is weak until the 2nd century. Then you get the Bantu peoples and farmers populating the coast, replacing hunter-gatherers. These Swahili, or coasters in Arabic, engage in trade with the Arabs. Their language is a form of Bantu, with some influence by Arabic. During the 10th century, the trade actually increases. Warlians in East Africa accepted Islam, but like the counterparts in West Africa, did not force the general population to convert. This enabled Islam to establish a presence in East Africa under the sponsorship of some influential patrons. Pagan religions and pagan religious traditions and practices were often retained. Islam served as a social glue with other merchant states, with the conversion opening the door to political alliances with Muslim rulers in other lands. African society had some kingdoms, empires, city-states, and some of their kingdoms, empires, city-states and cities had well-defined classes, like the ruling elites, merchant class, and peasant class. Many areas continued to use traditional kin-based groups. Extended families and clans served as a main foundation of social economic organization in small-scale agricultural societies, with the idea of private property being less relevant, except for slaves and animals. Land was held in community, and harvests were distributed by the elders. Men worked in specialized skills, such as lever-tending, ironwork, and heavy labor. Both sexes contributed in agriculture. With male rule proved more common, but there were some expanded rules for women, such as merchants and some military activity. This is thanks to the fact that Islamic norms for women were slow to penetrate African society. You also had something unique to Africa, the creation of age groups, with peer groups of a single age cohort. Age groups had the effect of establishing social ties that crossed lines of family and kinship. Slavery was also prevalent, being practiced since ancient times. Most slaves were captives of war, but also included debtors, suspected witches, criminals, and they were all used primarily in agricultural labor. They also served as a position as a status symbol. The increased Trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean trade stimulates the slave trade around the 9th century CE. Africa replaces Eastern Europe as the principal source of slaves. Funny enough, that's actually where the term slave comes from, Slav. The word slave comes from the term Slavic, referring to the earliest slaves in recorded European history. This creates an internal this helps stimulates the creation of an internal African slave trade, with more powerful states attacking smaller kinship-based groups. The trade eventually would include 10,000 to 20,000 slaves per year. And this is a picture of an Arabian slave trader and his slaves. The slave trade would often create tensions. For example, as in the Zanj Revolt. Black slaves from Swahili coast were exported to work in Mesopotamia on sugarcane plantations and salt deposits. In 869 CE, the slave Ali bin Muhammad mounts a revolt of 15,000 slaves. He captures Basra and sets up a rebel state for 15 years. It is later crushed by the Abbasids. 14 years, excuse me. Despite the collapse, the 14-year revolt demonstrated that African slavery was a prominent feature of Muslim society. African religions were very diverse in their beliefs. They had a common element of a single male/remote creator god. Lesser deities were associated with natural phenomenon. You also had ancestors of worship and diviners. Religious specialists were principally men. You also had oracle reading spells and other rituals. However, there was a limited emphasis on theology, with more emphasis placed on morality and proper behavior, as they were seen as essential to the maintenance of an orderly world. The 1st century, Christianity becomes popular in Egypt and North Africa. It is, however, weak in sub-Saharan Africa initially. However, you did get the creation of the Christian kingdom of Axum around the 4th century CE in Ethiopia. At first, the merchants convert, and then the kings. The Bible is translated to Ethiopian. However, this kingdom becomes isolated during the Islamic period, with a renaissance in the 12th century CE. This Renaissance would feature with massive churches being carved out of solid rock. And this is a picture of some obelisks at Axum. This one having collapsed during its construction. In the 12th century monolithic church at Lalibela was an example of these churches. It was built to match churches of Jerusalem after Saladin retook it. The Portuguese helped churn the tide against the Ottomans. Helped the Ethiopians when the Ottomans later attacked Ethiopia. And this is unfortunately blurry image of the church. As you can see, it is carved out of solid rock. Ethiopian Christianity would become isolated from other Christianities until the 16th century. As a result, you get independent development with a strong African influence, such as the presence of a spirit world and amulets. And thank you for listening.